today was the first time I'd actually accepted the fact that all my brothers are gone.
Barry Gibb is 79 now, and the life he's living today feels nothing like the glittering world people still associate with the Bee Gees. For decades, Barry was the constant, the steady voice, the man who always showed up, always carried the weight, and always kept the music alive even as the people closest to him kept slipping away. Fame gave him everything, then quietly took almost all of it back. One by one, his brothers died, and the band that defined a generation became a memory he has to live with every single day. And now, at an age when most legends are surrounded by celebration, Barry lives a much quieter, heavier reality defined by loss, survival, and memories that never really go silent. So what does life actually look like for Barry Gibb now? Join us as we get into the heartbreaking details. Barry Gibb survived what should have killed him before he could even remember it. Before Barry Gibb ever found his voice, life came dangerously close to taking it away. Barry Gibb was born on the 1st of September 1946 at Jane Crookall Maternity Home in Douglas, on the Isle of Man, into a family already moving to the uneven rhythm of music and uncertainty. His father, Hugh Gibb, a drummer from Manchester, was rarely still, picking up work wherever hotel stages would have him. His mother, Barbara, also Manchester-born, stayed home, anchoring the household while the days quietly rearranged themselves around survival. When Barry was born, Hugh was working constantly, playing drums at hotels around Douglas, while Barbara kept the home running. The family settled briefly at Chapel House on Strang Road. It was there, before Barry even turned 2, that everything went wrong. A hot teapot, set down for just a moment, was close enough for small hands to reach. Barry knocked it over. The burns were catastrophic. He spent roughly 2.5 months in Noble's Hospital. The damage went far beyond surface wounds. Infections set in. Gangrene followed. At one point, doctors believed he had only minutes left to live. Medical options were limited then. No skin grafts, no modern interventions, just endurance and chance. Barry would later explain that the most unsettling part wasn't the pain, but the absence. 2 full years of his early life were erased from memory. Hospital beds, recovery, fear, all gone. The knowledge of being burnt existed somewhere inside him, but without images or sensation attached to it. Only scars remained, permanent and silent, proof of something his mind refused to replay. In 1949, the family moved again, this time to 50 St. Catherine's Drive. That December, the household changed overnight when twins Robin and Maurice were born. Barry was no longer alone at the center. When the twins were still small, the family relocated to Smedley Cottage in Spring Valley, another temporary stop in a childhood defined by movement. School came soon after. Barry started Braddon School on the 4th of September 1951, just days after turning 5. In 1952, the family packed up once more, settling at 43 Snæfell Road in Williston, where they would stay for 2 years. That same year, Barry attended Tynwald Street Infant School. By his 7th birthday in 1953, he had moved on again, this time to Desmain Road Boys School. Nothing about Barry Gibb's early years was loud or glamorous. No warning signs of global fame. Just a fragile beginning, close calls, constant relocation, and a child who survived something he would never truly remember, yet would carry with him for the rest of his life. Before the Bee Gees became a phenomenon, Barry Gibb was already paying the price. When the Gibb family moved back to Manchester in 1955, there was no sense of settling in. It was another adjustment, another attempt to land somewhere solid. Almost immediately, the brothers leaned toward music, not as a plan, but as instinct. They formed a skiffle group and called it the Rattlesnakes. Barry took the lead, singing while handling both lead and slide guitar. Robin and Maurice backed him on vocals and acoustic guitar. 2 friends from the neighborhood, Paul Frost and Kenny Horrocks, filled out the lineup, lending vocals and whatever energy they could bring. By 1957, the Rattlesnakes were working through the songs everyone knew. Cliff Richard, Paul Anka, Buddy Holly, the Everly Brothers. Familiar melodies, tight harmonies, and songs learnt by listening hard and playing them again and again until they stuck. Even Barry's memory couldn't later lock down their first song. At one point, he said it was Paul Anka's "I Love You Baby." Years later, he remembered it as "Wake Up Little Susie." Their first professional gig came on the 28th of December 1957 at the Gaumont Cinema. It wasn't a breakthrough, but it mattered. It confirmed that what they were doing could exist outside bedrooms and back rooms. Not long after, a careless accident snapped Barry's guitar straight through the middle. Frost later described it exactly that way, broken clean in two. By May 1958, as the family moved again to Northern Grove, Frost and Horrocks fell away. The band contracted, the brothers remained. They renamed themselves Wee Johnny Hayes and the Blue Cats, and found a rhythm that kept them visible. Every Thursday night, from 7 to 9, they played the Minor 15 Talent Contest for under 15s at the Princess Club in Chorlton. Same stage, same audience, same nerves. Week after week, they turned up, learning how to perform even when nothing was guaranteed. Then came the move that changed everything. In early August 1958, the Gibb family boarded the Fair Sea in Southampton under an assisted migration scheme bound for Australia. It wasn't about adventure, it was about survival. Also aboard were Red Simons and the parents of a future pop star, though no one could have known how those lives would later intersect. At the time, it was just a long crossing and the weight of starting over yet again. Australia offered no shortcuts. Money was tight, so the brothers sang wherever they could, including between races at the Red Cliff Speedway. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills. That unlikely stage brought them to the attention of Bill Gates, a radio DJ who listened closely. He wasn't just impressed by their harmonies. He paid attention to Barry's original songs, including Let Me Love You and Underneath the Starlight of Love. Gates asked for more material, and Barry kept writing. By September 1961, Barry quit school. There was no dramatic break, just a quiet decision that music had already won. The family moved to Surfer's Paradise, and the brothers spent the summers of 1961 and 1962 playing hotels and clubs across the Gold Coast. Long nights blended together. Applause came and went. By September 1962, Barry had enough confidence to audition songs for Col Joye. At the start of 1963, the family relocated again, this time to Sydney, and the Bee Gees edged closer to something official. They signed with Festival Records, but were placed on its Leiden imprint. Their first single, The Battle of the Blue and the Gray, was written by Barry. From 1963 through 1966, every Bee Gees single carried his name. Other artists took notice quickly. In July 1963, Lonnie Lee recorded I'd Like to Leave If I May, often cited as the first rock and roll recording of a Barry Gibb song, even if radio preferred the flip side. Between 1963 and 1966, Barry's material was recorded by Trevor Gordon, Noeline Batley, Ann Shelton, April Byron, Ronnie Burns, and Laurie Balmer. His song, One Road, climbed to number 2 on the New South Wales chart for Jimmy Little in 1964, and later appeared on the Kent Music Report. That same year, Brian Davies reached number 25 with I Just Don't Like to Be Alone. Barry's writing moved faster than the band itself. In 1966, recognition arrived in a more formal way when Barry won the Radio 5KA Award for Best Composition with I Was a Lover, a Leader of Men. Momentum accelerated and rest vanished. Early in 1967, the Bee Gees returned to the United Kingdom. On 24th February, they passed a live audition and signed with Robert Stigwood the same day Spicks and Specks was released in Britain. Stigwood became their manager immediately. Drummer Colin Peterson and lead guitarist Vince Maloney joined soon after. Their first international album, Bee Gees First, followed. The second single, To Love Somebody, with Barry on lead vocals, took on a life of its own and never really let go. Around the same time, the brothers added backing vocals to Cowmen, Milk Your Cow, written by Barry and Robin and sung by Adam Faith. One night in 1967, Barry found himself inside London's Speakeasy Club, a place that operated on permission rather than signs. Pete Townshend introduced him to John Lennon, who barely turned around. Lennon had just come from the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band photo shoot and stayed locked in conversation. Barry later joked that he met Lennon's back, not his front. It was a strange moment, close enough to brush against history, distant enough to feel invisible. Behind the scenes, pressure built steadily. The schedule never eased, and expectations only climbed. On a flight from Australia to Turkey in 1967, both Barry and Robin collapsed from nervous exhaustion. By 23rd December, they left England again, landing in Australia on Christmas Day after missing Christmas Eve entirely. They spent the holiday with Stigwood's family, then moved on to Sydney, already drained. By the end of 1967, the strain was undeniable. In early 1968, disagreements over creative control intensified, spilling into the studio and onto the stage. Appearances on The Smothers Brothers Show and The Ed Sullivan Show expanded their reach in the United States, but tension followed them everywhere. Barry's 1968 composition, Only One Woman, became a UK hit for the Marbles, and Hollywood invitations soon followed. At a party hosted by Lee Hazelwood, candid photos later surfaced showing Barry talking with actress Angela Cartwright and, in another moment, playing guitar while members of Honey Let's Deeds sang along. Nothing in the picture was scandalous. It was just a reminder of how exposed and popular the band had become. In 1969, the Bee Gees released 1st of May with Lamplight on the flip side. Robert Stigwood chose 1st of May as the A-side. Shortly after, Robin announced his solo plans. The Bee Gees released Tomorrow without him. Barry stayed busy, co-writing and producing for Samantha Sang and producing tracks for P.P. Arnold, including Bury Me Down by the River. Drummer Colin Peterson left that summer, leaving the group reduced to Barry and Maurice. Harry Cox stepped in briefly. Songs were recorded. Only a handful were released. By December 1969, the Bee Gees announced their split. In January 1970, Barry returned to the one thing that had never left him: writing, quietly, relentlessly, preparing for recording sessions the following month while everything that had come before lingered, heavy and unresolved, refusing to disappear. And that unresolved weight is exactly where the next chapter begins. When the Bee Gees fell apart, and why it almost stayed that way. When the Bee Gees sang together, it sounded effortless, like harmony was their natural state. What most people never saw was how hard that harmony was to maintain once the music stopped. Barry, Robin, and Maurice Gibb had been blending their voices since they were children, barely old enough to understand what they were building. They weren't manufactured, they weren't assembled. They grew into each other musically through repetition, instinct, and an almost unfair level of familiarity. By the time they were teenagers, they were already professionals, already living a life that demanded constant closeness. That kind of togetherness can create magic, but it can also stretch relationships thin. By 1963, the Bee Gees were officially recording artists. Barry was just 16. Robin and Maurice were only 13. Long before their first single, they had already spent years rehearsing, performing, traveling, and dreaming together. Their bond was deep, but it was also unrelenting. There was no real separation between work and family. Everything overlapped. Inside the group, the work was divided in a way that looked fair on the surface. Songwriting was largely shared. Barry, as the eldest, had started writing earlier, so he often arrived with more material. Lead vocals moved back and forth, mainly between Barry and Robin. On record, it sounded balanced. Behind the scenes, it was anything but. The real fracture line ran through the question no one wanted to say out loud at first. Who was the front man? Robin had sung Lead on Massachusetts, the song that gave the Bee Gees their first UK #1. That success mattered. It shifted perception, not just outside the band, but inside it too. Robin began to feel that his voice should lead more often. Barry didn't see it the same way. To him, the group worked best when roles were fluid, when no one voice dominated for too long. Complicating everything were the voices around them. Friends, industry people, admirers. Each brother heard some version of the same message, whispered in different ways. You don't need the others. You could do this alone. That kind of talk doesn't create confidence. It creates doubt. It turns collaboration into competition. By 1969, the tension had nowhere left to go. The fight over which song would lead the album Odessa brought everything to the surface. Barry's 1st of May was chosen as the A-side over Robin's Lamplight. It wasn't just a creative decision, it felt personal. In March of that year, Robin announced he was leaving the group. For the first time, the Bee Gees weren't the Bee Gees. Barry and Maurice carried on as a duo, continuing under the same name, even recording the album Cucumber Castle, without Robin taking part in the sessions at all. At the same time, Robin was planning his own future, convinced that stepping away was the only way to be heard. What followed wasn't freedom, it was distance. Robin released his solo album Robin's Reign in February 1970. It produced a UK #2 single, Saved by the Bell, but the album itself failed to come close to the impact of a Bee Gees release. The success was real, but it was limited. Meanwhile, Barry and Maurice were drifting too. Plans were announced for solo careers on their end as well. The idea of the Bee Gees as a finished chapter suddenly felt real. The pop world took notice. A group that seemed inseparable had fractured in full view. For a long stretch, the brothers barely spoke. What finally pulled them back together wasn't nostalgia, it was necessity. Contracts still needed attention, loose ends had to be handled, and soon enough, conversations resumed slowly. Somewhere in those practical discussions, something unexpected happened. They remembered what it felt like to work together. They remembered what they missed. One by one, solo projects were quietly abandoned. Barry's album went unfinished. Maurice's plans faded. Robin scrapped a second solo effort. Without announcing it loudly, the Bee Gees reunited. Almost immediately, they began working on a song that said everything they hadn't been able to say to each other. How can you mend a broken heart? Wasn't subtle. It didn't need to be. The question at its center echoed their own situation, the damage done, and the effort required to move forward. They never pretended the conflict hadn't happened. They didn't erase it. They learned how to live with it, how to work through it, how to protect the music, even when emotions ran high. That brief breakup lasted less than a year, but it left a mark. It proved the Bee Gees weren't immune to the same pressures that tear other bands apart. It also proved something else. Even fractured, even bruised, they still belonged together. And thankfully, they still had a lot more music left to give. And while the band was finding its way back, Barry's personal life was slowly breaking apart. Barry Gibb found forever. Right after losing it all, Barry Gibb didn't find lasting love easily. Before he found the woman who would stay, he learned how quickly things could fall apart. His first marriage came early. In August 1966, at just 19 years old, Barry Gibb married Maureen Bates. The timing alone said everything. Barry was young, famous, constantly moving, and still trying to understand who he was outside the music. The marriage itself did not last, and they separated by July 1970. At the time, Barry was living at Abbey House, close enough to Abbey Road Studios that work never really stopped. Life kept moving, even as his marriage ended. 2 months later, everything changed. Barry first met Linda Gray in 1967 on the set of Top of the Pops in London. Linda was Miss Edinburgh, filling in as hostess for the week. Barry later admitted something almost funny about the moment. Massachusetts was sitting at #1, and she hadn't even heard the song. None of that mattered. According to Barry, the connection was instant. No build-up, no hesitation, just a feeling that landed and stayed. He would later explain that they saw each other across the room and something happened that didn't need explaining. And because Barry is Barry, the story doesn't stop there. Nearby, another studio was filming Doctor Who. At some point, they slipped into the TARDIS. Surrounded by Daleks, they shared a quiet, unexpected moment. Not glamorous, not planned, just real. Years later, Barry still talked about that first meeting the same way. On Piers Morgan's Life Stories in 2017, he admitted that he knew immediately. Not hoped, not guessed, knew. In his mind, Linda was the woman he would spend the rest of his life with. That certainty never left him. By September 1st, 1970, 3 years after they first met, Barry and Linda were married. The date mattered. It was also Barry's 24th birthday. His divorce from Maureen had been finalized just 2 months earlier. The timing wasn't messy, it was decisive. When Barry chose Linda, he didn't hesitate. From there, life didn't slow down, but it settled. 3 years into their marriage, Barry and Linda welcomed their first child. On December 1st, Stephen Thaddeus Crompton Gibb was born in London. Later raised in Miami, Stephen grew up surrounded by music, but not pressured by it. At 3, he played piano. As a teenager, he switched to guitar. His path leaned heavier, louder. Over time, he played with hard rock and metal bands, including 58, Black Label Society, and Crowbar. It wasn't the Bee Gees' sound, and that was the point. Their second son, Ashley Robert Crompton Gibb, arrived on September 8th. Music pulled at him too, just in a different way. According to longtime fan accounts, Linda had always loved the name Ashley. His middle name came from Robert Stigwood, the man whose belief in the Bee Gees changed their lives. In January 1981, Barry and Linda welcomed their third son, Travis Gibb, born in Florida. Then 3 years later, the family grew again. On December 1st, 1984, Michael Gibb was born, sharing a birthday with his older brother, Stephen. Michael was named after Michael Jackson, Barry's close friend and Michael's godfather. While music was always nearby, Michael chose acting instead, earning multiple screen credits over the years. In December 1991, the family welcomed their first daughter, Alexandra Gibb. By then, Barry and Linda's household was full and loud. Fame still existed, but it no longer defined the center of Barry's life. Family did. The next chapter came quietly. In December 2002, Stephen welcomed his daughter Nina, making her Barry and Linda's first grandchild. The following year, Ashley's son, Lucas John Crompton, was born. Over time, the number grew. 7 grandchildren in total. A legacy that had nothing to do with charts or awards. In September last year, Barry and Linda marked 51 years of marriage. 5 children, 7 grandchildren. A lifetime of music that traveled the world. Through it all, they stayed together. No public drama, no spectacle, just consistency. Today, Barry and Linda live in their Miami Beach home, far from the chaos that once defined Barry's younger years. The fame never disappeared, but it stopped being the loudest thing in the room. What remains is something steadier, a love that started in a television studio, passed through a blue police box, and somehow lasted longer than anyone expected. But while it might seem like Barry Gibb's home life is settled now, there was a point in time when everything he had built was overshadowed by loss. Long before the quiet routines of family and grandchildren, Barry had to confront a series of tragedies that no success could soften. One by one, he lost all 3 of his brothers, the people who had shared not just his childhood, but also his music, his ambition, and his identity. Those losses didn't come all at once. They arrived years apart, each one reopening wounds Barry never truly had the chance to close. Barry Gibb lost his brothers, one by one, and lived to carry the silence. For all the joy the Bee Gees gave the world, the later years of their story are defined by something much quieter and much heavier. By 2003, tragedy had begun closing in on the Gibb family in a way no amount of success could soften. That January, Maurice Gibb died suddenly in Miami. He was only 53. What began as severe stomach pain turned into an emergency admission at Mount Sinai Medical Center, where doctors discovered a twisted intestine, a volvulus, that required immediate surgery. Maurice briefly regained consciousness after the procedure, offering a fragile moment of hope, but his body couldn't recover. Cardiac arrest followed, and he was gone. For the Bee Gees, the loss was seismic. Maurice wasn't just a member of the group, he was the stabilizer. The one person inside the band described as the glue. He understood harmony instinctively, held arrangements together, smoothed over disagreements, and kept things from tipping too far when tensions rose. When he died, something essential disappeared with him. Barry and Robin were left standing, suddenly aware that the balance they had always relied on was gone. Less than a decade later, the family was forced to face that kind of loss again. Robin Gibb died in London at the age of 62 after a long and punishing battle with colorectal cancer that had spread to his liver. In his final months, his health deteriorated rapidly. Pneumonia left him in a coma, and although he briefly regained consciousness, his body was already failing. Liver and kidney failure followed, and there was no recovery. Robin's voice had always been unmistakable. That trembling vibrato carried songs like Massachusetts and I Started a Joke into something deeply personal for millions of listeners. Even as his health declined, he kept working, kept recording, kept pushing forward until he physically couldn't anymore. His death closed the door on an era that Barry would never be able to reopen. When Barry later spoke about losing his brothers, the weight of it came through without effort. He admitted that his greatest regret was realizing that every brother he lost was gone during a period when they weren't getting along. That knowledge, he explained, was something he would live with forever, reflecting on it for the rest of his life. He described himself as the last man standing, a reality he still couldn't fully understand, especially as the eldest. During that interview, Barry broke down in tears, admitting it was the first time he had ever done so while speaking about the subject. The emotion wasn't performative, it was exhaustion mixed with disbelief. Barry went on to say that nobody ever truly knew what the three brothers felt about each other, because that understanding only existed between them. What they shared wasn't just sibling closeness, it was unity. He explained that the three of them became one person in many ways, driven by the same dream, moving in the same direction. That shared purpose, more than the fame or the accolades, was what he missed most. Hovering over all of it was an earlier loss that never stopped haunting the family. Andy Gibb, the youngest of the brothers, died in 1988 at just 30 years old after years of struggling with drug addiction and depression. His death came long before the others, but its impact never faded. Andy's passing was the first fracture, the warning that even talent and love weren't enough to protect them from everything. Barry Gibb, at 79, the wealth, the power, and the life he never brags about. At this point in his life, Barry Gibb isn't chasing anything anymore. He's living inside what remains. As of 2025, Barry Gibb is 79 years old and the last surviving member of the Bee Gees, a fact that hangs over everything else, no matter how successful or comfortable his life appears. The music never left him, but the noise around it has faded. What's left is legacy, family, and a kind of wealth that no longer needs to announce itself. Barry is still active, not touring relentlessly, not trying to relive anything, but present. He continues to protect and contribute to the Bee Gees' catalog, making sure the music is handled with care, intention, and respect. He isn't done, but he's selective. His lifestyle reflects decades of success without sliding into excess. In Miami, Barry owns a waterfront estate valued at around $25 million, a property that offers privacy, space, and uninterrupted views. It's less about flash and more about retreat, a place where the world stays outside. Alongside that, he maintains a UK property valued between $7 and $12 million, keeping a connection to the place where everything first began. There was once another home, one that carried its own weight of history. In 2006, Barry purchased a Tennessee ranch that had previously belonged to Johnny Cash for $2.3 million. It was meant to be restored, reimagined. Instead, a fire destroyed the house in 2007 while renovations were underway. The loss was never replaced. Some things aren't meant to be rebuilt. Barry's taste extends beyond real estate. He's long had an appreciation for cars, particularly those that blend engineering with personality. Among his collection is a Lamborghini Countach 5000S, a machine that speaks less to speed and more to design and era. It's not a collection built for attention, it's curated. Financially, Barry sits in a position few artists ever reach. As of 2025, his estimated net worth stands at roughly $140 million, making him the wealthiest member of the Bee Gees' legacy. That figure isn't the result of one revenue stream, but many layered carefully over time. Bee Gees royalties alone bring in an estimated $5 to $10 million annually. His songwriting work for other artists contributes an additional $1 to $2 million per year. Even without extensive touring, solo performances and select appearances add another $1 to $2 million. Licensing and synchronization deals tied to the Bee Gees catalog generate between $3 and $5 million yearly, quietly keeping the music alive in films, commercials, and television. His assets tell their own story. The Miami estate sits at $25 million. The UK property ranges between $7 and $12 million. His cars and yacht are collectively valued between $9 and $12 million. Merchandise sales and ongoing interest in the Bee Gees brand bring in another $1 to $3 million annually. There's also the future to consider. Barry is attached as an executive producer on a major Bee Gees biopic, currently in development. Depending on performance and final agreements, that role could earn him anywhere between $500,000 and $2 million. More importantly, it gives him control over how the story is told. Despite his age, Barry hasn't disconnected. He still shows up when it matters, still contributes when it feels right, still guards the music as something sacred, not just profitable. His life now is quieter, heavier, and far more deliberate than the fame-filled decades that came before. Barry Gibb isn't defined by luxury, even though he has it. He isn't defined by money, even though he's earned it. What defines him now is endurance. The ability to keep going, to remember, to live well without pretending nothing was lost along the way. At 79, he's not just the last Bee Gee. He's the one left to carry it all. Which Bee Gee songs are your favorites? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also, click the next videos shown on your screen. You will enjoy it.